You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Repeat break-ins frustrate. That's probably a wild understatement, right? Repeat break-ins frustrate Seattle business owners. Some take extra steps for protection. This is an ongoing story. This isn't new. Crime in Seattle. Yeah, we get it. It's off the hook. Nobody's doing anything about it. Citizens are doing their own thing. Okay, so yeah, we've got this narrative going, and we've got things that are moving things in the right direction. It's just going to take a long time. We've had some election results come back from the early November, and 3 out of the 4 races here in Seattle that we're kind of looking at, they were won by now elected officials that we're going to say are either more moderate or even Republican. That's hard to say in Seattle. That's a tricky one to actually get out there. You know what I mean? Because you just feel like somebody might take a hammer and hit you in the back of the head for saying that. But yeah, that's where we sit. And so the reason I focus on so much of the business issues, what's going on, because public safety has been so impacted in a city like Seattle and in California and state like California and in Portland. We've got these issues going on, and it feels like we've got a half step in the right direction with some of the folks we're electing. We're trying to get 𝒔𝒕𝒕𝒍𝒆 out of office here in Seattle. She is our socialist alternative party member, the only elected official in the United States from that party. She's right here on the Seattle City Council. And some might say that her influence hasn't necessarily been a positive one, and the businesses that she, supposedly represents are being impacted. And, you read all these stories. I read all these stories where you're like, and council member yada yada was reached out to for a comment, and they didn't get back to us ever, because the city's so overwhelmed with these kind of crime stories because we don't have enough police to go around. We defunded them and they went away as they should. And now we're trying to get some back. It's going to take a while. So I've been talking about some of the vigilante, and by vigilante, we mean people implementing stopgaps in between where they recognize, all right, we don't have enough police on our streets to keep the city of Seattle safe. So we're a business owner. Here's what we're doing. That's kind of what we're talking about. And that's what we're talking about in this podcast. So before we jump on in, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read the news from that perspective. Now, a lot of people say, hey, you're a real estate guy. You're supposed to be just pumping up real estate. You're supposed to be selling real estate. Well, the crazy thing is I am. We are. In spite of all this nonsense going on, real estate market is super hot. And it's because you've got this supply issue. You've got no supply. One of my family members had a listing of another family member's house this weekend, and it's in a smaller community. And there was so many people at the open house that they had to shut down the open house for the next day because they got complaints from the people within the community. Hey, people are parking where they shouldn't be parking. People are, everybody's so worked up to see this house. And it was, it's an okay house. It's an attached 2-story home. I don't know, a couple thousand square feet, but it's been updated. There's so little inventory that there's just this mad rush when you get to see one that's active, that's available. This might be our only shot of getting housing in Seattle on the east side. So you've got this weird thing going on where you've got repeated break-ins frustrate Seattle business owners, and yet the real estate is just going bonkers because we don't have enough supply. And that's across the United States. That supply issue has been there, but particularly here in Seattle and on the east side. Then by the east side, when I say that, I mean east of Lake Washington, big body of water separating Bellevue from Seattle. And our real estate market is just, it's been going nutty. So I don't have to focus on trying to pump things up. My bottom line is I want to be real and kind of share with you what's going on. And I think that's why a lot of people tune in. So believe it or not, I can do both jobs. I can talk about what's really going on here in Seattle, and I think people appreciate that. A lot of other people in real estate, they either don't want to hear what I have to say because it's not normal, or they're just like, yeah, that guy has a legit, opinion as well. And the fact that I've been doing this as long as I have, I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he's been doing that a long time, and he's still saying that stuff. I kind of say what is in the news that a lot of people don't want to focus on, which is, you know what? City of Seattle's got some problems. It's got some really cool stuff too, but right now we're a little bit bogged down. And one of those and by a little bit bogged down, I mean, we've got stuff going on that I have never seen in my lifetime. And not that I'm that old, but I'm 53, almost 60. I'm almost 60. I round up now just so when people ask me how I live, I'm almost 60, and people look at me and go, what's wrong with you? It's funny, right? Right. It's like when you tell a 25-year-old young lady, hey, you're almost 30. What's your reaction to that? It's not good. Try it next time if you have that opportunity. It's pretty funny. Aren't you almost 30? Oh, they'll get worked up. They'll just really get worked up. So repeated break-ins. Let's focus on that. Let's see what local businesses are doing differently. A local business owner says that the city is out of control and overrun with what he calls unchecked crime. My first podcast today, I was talking about Portland and how they basically have businesses there en masse are hiring private security, a company called Echelon. Seems to be working. But then you've got the whole issue of, shouldn't the police be doing that? Well, they should, but we defunded them, and now we're trying to refund them. And guess how the refunding is going? Yeah, not that well. Because it takes the supply and demand curve of law enforcement, you bump cops out, they're not going to be running back. Oh, give me my job back. Let me have my job back. They're not doing that. And rightfully so, because the whole environment hasn't changed. Nothing has really changed other than the public sentiment is at a point where we're like, hey, there's a lot of crime going on. Maybe we need some more cops. I think I've heard that before somewhere. I don't really know, but that does seem to be a common theme that comes up, right? Defund the police, bad. Refund the police, yeah, we need to hop on that. But that's going to take a long time. It just is. And in the meantime, you've got business owners trying to do their thing, facing what is an out-of-control situation and unchecked crime. Great. That's swell. This morning, as I was eating my Cheerios or my Wheaties, like we referred to back in the day, I don't eat cereal just because it's mainly carbs and a lot of times has a bunch of sugar in it. I'll have a healthier option like egg whites and a whole wheat muffin. God, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? No, it's pretty good. Or a whole wheat toast, something like that. Some protein powder in a shake. As I was eating my breakfast, I was watching. I don't know why, but I keep watching these channels that have all the hookers on Highway 99 because that's another aspect that I'm like, okay, let's just see how many there are now because it's been raining a lot. And so you know how you can tell somebody isn't from Seattle? They carry an effing umbrella. Legit. That's how you know. I don't have an umbrella. I don't think I even own an umbrella because I would never take one out from the standpoint of, you don't really need one. You need a coat with a hood. You can survive that. That's how it's done here, Seattle style, right? So I think the word on the street is that there are not enough officers out there to be able to do their job, said Steele Barber owner Matthew Humphrey. He told Como. There's not enough officers out there to be able to do their job. So they are doing their jobs just in a limited capacity. And what that means is that the overall city doesn't have enough public safety coverage, period. End of story. Bottom line. That's it. So what do? Well, some might argue that you get some more cops into the system. And then the other issue is you're not prosecuting them. So most of them think it's just free reign on the city. And that's what it feels like it is. Because going back to not being quite so old, and you read the news, and, like when I was in my 20s or 30s, you would read a crime about somebody like bashing into a store. And, 3/4 of the way down, you would read, and the suspect was apprehended 2 hours later, because they had the resources to do it back then. Now, law enforcement doesn't have the resources to even respond to a property crime half the time. I mean, we've got people dying, literally straight up dying, arguably, from 911, not able to get people there fast enough for various circumstances. It's not across the board, but it is happening. We've had cases of that happening here in Seattle, where, if we had greater bandwidth of, police, then arguably people wouldn't be dying. And it's not an everyday occurrence, but it's enough where you're like, yeah, that does make sense. If you can't get a cop there for whatever reason, they can't clear the pathway for EMTs to get in there, you're going to have, just like the first kid to die at CHOP, you're going to have issues. It's not going to be pretty. Humphrey's Barbershop in Seattle's Ravenna neighborhood, Ravenna/Roosevelt neighborhood. So that is to the north and east of downtown Seattle. Ravenna is just to the north of the University of Washington district. Ravenna used to be a very good neighborhood. Roosevelt, a little bit sketchier, but still close to downtown. They're right in the heart of things. That's where the Humphrey's Barbershop is. It was recently the target of a smash and grab burglary, and it's not the first time. Shocking, right? And who are doing these burglaries? A lot of them are people on drugs or people looking to make a little bit of money to do their next fix and buy their next fix, Organized crime, just people out criming, right? I mean, there's no repercussions for what they're doing, so why wouldn't they? Humphrey and other business owners are taking security into their own hands. All right, and we're starting to talk about vigilante, for lack of a better word. We've got lots of examples of that going on. You've got people picking up the garbage. Well, it shouldn't be, according to city officials. You can't pick up that garbage. That's not your garbage to pick up. Yeah, but it's on the street and they're doing a really good job. So I say we let them. You've got individual businesses putting eco blocks out on the streets to prevent RVs from posting up for, ever, and all the influences that bring. You've got citizens down in Portland hiring security guards that are kind of doing their own thing, keeping businesses safe. You got people taking things into their own hands, and security isn't the only thing. It's because there's a big gap in public safety right now, and people are doing what they got to do to survive. Humphrey says thieves busted through the front window at Steele Barber early Monday morning and took off with his most valuable piece of equipment, his payment system. It was literally 27 seconds, Humphrey said. So they smashed in through that window right there, the two of them, and then they walked over here and grabbed our Microsoft Surface like this one. Microsoft Surfaces, those are not cheap. They're really expensive. That sucks. For a small business, when they steal stuff, yeah, that's horrific. But it's usually the damage they do breaking in, because anything on a commercial building is expensive. The lock system is expensive. The windows are expensive. The doors are expensive. It's not like you just run down to Home Depot and, make it happen. It's just all this stuff it's commercial. So Humphrey says his barbershop in Ballard was also hit about 3 weeks ago. So these are people on an ongoing basis dealing with this happening. Even though the suspected thief didn't take anything, he did about $4,000 in damage, according to Humphrey. So you take out $4,000 from your budget each month. What does that look like? How does your business, which is your family, how does that operate? Maybe you're loaded. Maybe you're like, $4,000. I spend that at, the grocery store on what I'm ridiculous example, but maybe $4,000 isn't that big of a hit to you. But for most folks, I would say the vast majority of families out there, you take $4,000 out of their family budget, there's going to be issues, right? Businesses, no different. And you might say, well, that's a commercial business. They should have insurance. How many times can you claim insurance before your insurance carrier says, yeah, you know what? We don't need your business anymore. We are going to not renew that policy, and we're very sorry, but we appreciate you as a patron over the years, just not so much now. I mean, that's what happens. It's kind of like you get enough, rear end, wrecks, whatever with your car. Maybe you didn't do it. Maybe you did do it. You have that happen enough times, your insurance company, they're going to say, you're a great person. You're not necessarily a great driver. We're not going to reinsure you. We're not going to renew your policy. So more neighborhoods are seeing break-ins more often, according to Humphrey. It literally is a crime wave here in Seattle, and it's going unchecked, said Humphrey. Yes. So, we know this is happening and it's going on, and yet real estate is going through the roof at the same time. It's this weird juxtaposition, right? I mean, it's just weird. It's strange. It's like, okay. And people want to live there because, all right, well, they've got all their jobs there and they're making good money. And yeah, they can't use the parks. The homeless overrun the parks. And stores, the stores are getting broken into pretty regularly. Yes, you've got these things. But in Seattle, what you can't take away from Seattle is its location and its physical beauty. I mean, you got to look past the needles and the sidewalk and all that, garbage and tents and stuff. But you're talking about people living there, and they're going to the Olympic Peninsula. They're going to the Cascade Mountains right now skiing. They're going up to Canada. They're going to Lake Washington. They're going to Puget Sound. They're going to all these things. And that's why they put up with it, because it's still pretty cool. Now I'm doing a real estate plug. I'll stop. I'll continue reading the article. But that's why. That's why you've got $1 million homes next to just this craziness going on. More neighborhoods are seeing break-ins more often, according to Humphrey. It's a crime wave, unchecked. That's why 𝒔𝒕𝒕𝒍𝒆, the owner of Specs in the City, spent $8,000 for added protection. So down in Portland, we read about business spending $16,000 a month on extra security. That means they get one roving person for a round, and then they get one stationary person, I think, by the front door. A couple of security people, $16,000 a month. And they're doing enough business where they're like, okay, that is a business expense we need to do. Most small businesses can't do that. Most small businesses can't afford $4,000 because that comes out of their bottom line. And take $4,000 out of whatever your family or business system is. That's not good. It's not good. I spent lots of money to put the shield. We're talking about the business owner now. We have to close the door with the shield every evening to feel safer because it's not safe anymore, 𝒆𝒂𝒕𝒍𝒆 said. Even with the roll-up security door and a private security guard on patrol, the extra protection did not stop someone from trying to break in 𝒆𝒂𝒕𝒍𝒆's business last month. They try and break in again. They broke my handles. They were, I don't know, aggressive homeless. I don't know, 𝒆𝒂𝒕𝒍𝒆 said. Nobody knows, oftentimes who breaks in because you either don't catch them on camera or nobody apprehends them. And that's so much of this crime is unchecked. It's just going on unchecked because we don't have the bandwidth of police officers to do anything about it. So it's just like everybody knows, all right, it's free for all in Seattle. Let's go. KOMO News reached out to Seattle Councilman Alex Peterson to ask him about the break-ins happening in his district. We asked him what he's doing about the crimes and concerns about the homeless with mental health problems. He shared this statement. You can imagine how this is going to go, right? I mean, just take a guess. I share the concerns of residents and businesses who have been victims of crime, which is why I recently supported restoring more of our police department's budget, as well as additional upstream crime prevention programs and personnel. All right. So literally, and Alex has been one of the ones on the city council who has been less defund the police. Let's be a little more reasonable. So he's pushing for get more cops in Seattle, which is a wild turnaround from where we were at a year and a half ago in Seattle, which was defund the police by 50%. We looked at that, how that impacted things. And then we kind of saw, oh, yeah, these crime patterns not going in the right direction. So now even a Seattle City Council person is able to go, oh, yeah, this is why I'm most recently supporting restoring more of our police department, as well as trying to figure out some other ways to prevent said crime from happening on the daily. I share the concerns of residents and businesses who's been victims of crime. That's your job as a council member. It's your job to not only share with that, but help prevent that from happening. Haven't had a lot of that going on, but at least we're talking in the right direction now, right? I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but it's going to take time either which way. Even if we get back on the right track, it's going to take time. A lot of these business owners, they're having to take matters in their own hands. Security, roll up doors, you name it. Councilman Peterson says he is pushing for more services to help the homeless. We're all pushing for that, but without a massive more amount of money, to the budget for homelessness. How many billions are we spending on that issue? It's crazy. So that includes, he's hoping for more services to help the homeless. That includes, this is what Councilman Peterson is hoping for, new short-term shelter for people with mental health concerns. All right. Expanding mobile behavior health centers. All right. Developing citywide response for those experiencing a crisis. Can't agree more. We need those things. That's what I'm told anyway, that it's going to get better if we have more services, able to help these people out that are in crisis. In the short term, I think you need to get some more cops out there. Social services, great. Yep, agreed. But you need some more cops on the street to deter the ongoing crime that's happening right now. Some of the shooting stuff that's going on, need to address that. Nobody wants to. Yeah, right? I mean, nobody wants to address that. They just don't. Major media doesn't want to address it. You read all these articles and it kind of gets to this certain point and you're like, okay, who's doing the shooting? Who's doing the shooting? Who's being killed? Let's look at that. And then the article stops. Weird, right? As for Humphrey, he's hoping for any support from the city or the police department. He says things have gone too far. I can't sit back here and let people continue to destroy my business and my livelihood and 46 other people's livelihood, said Humphrey. No. And that's why I think, people are doing security stuff. They're hiring security guards, putting stuff out in front of their businesses so you don't have these influences just literally camp out in front of your business. I mean, I was reading about some of the dash and grab down in California, where a lot of those instances you've seen happen to big, chains, big corporate chains. But it happens all the time to smaller businesses as well. And, if you've made it through the pandemic and, you're still in business and you're still going, your business, just gets rocked. Crazy times, right? I mean, a tough time to be in business. And you might say, well, if you've got a business, you're privileged. All right. Try running one. It's just not that easy. Try running a business year in and year out, facing whatever happens with that market. The past couple of years, it's been, you're open, you're closed, you're open. Nope, you're closed. And now you got to become the vaccine police. You got to ask people if they're vaxxed to come in your store because they need to be. You need to be the police. Because we're going to fine you if you're letting people in that aren't vaxxed. If you're not wearing the mask, wear the mask, double mask, triple mask, 14 mask it, all this stuff that business owners are being asked to take on as additional responsibility because we've had a global pandemic. And then you've got all this crime going on. It's tough on businesses, especially during this time of the season. This is when they're supposed to be making all their money. Because it's the season of consumerism. I mean, Christmas, holidays. Yeah. All right. So here's a couple of examples of what these guys are doing. They are locking down their businesses. You know what I hate about that is when you go through these neighborhoods after all the businesses are closed, you look at it and you go, that doesn't look good. What are they preventing from happening here? And it's just a total admission that these businesses can't operate normally. They have to have all these additional steps of security and roll up bar things on their doors and security guards, and because we've let crime just basically, be a free-for-all throughout the city. Seattle's not the only one. Portland, San Francisco, West Coast, progressive cities. Did I say that out loud? I think I did. All right. You get the idea. You get the dealio. Because you don't see this in cities that have voted a little bit more moderate and or to the right. You don't see this happening like this, do you? I mean, crime has gone up. It's gone up across the country, whether you've defunded police or not. You just don't see the examples like this happening in other cities. Yeah, there's that. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I will catch up with you on the next one because I know I will. We're going to do it. All right. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.